introduced a film stock called SP. And this was a stock that was to counter complaints from filmmakers like Martin Scorsese that films were printed on Eastman Kodak stock were fading. And they would pull out a projection print of a film that was made even 5, 6, 7 years ago. They were starting to lose all the colors except the magenta layer, and so you'd have these really pink, red prints. You've probably seen some of them projected here from time to time of a rare film. And so the SP process, or film stock, was to try to counter that. And it was not perfected. They later came out with what is known as low fade stock, LFP. But so this film stock that you see gives the whole film a little bit of a brownish tone. There's still some color left in it, but the whole film looks a little on the brownish sepia side. And what's interesting is that that was actually more or less the color palette that he and cinematographer Vilmos Zsigmond chose for this picture. It was part of the internal design. Cimino, doing all the intricate, exhaustive research he did to make this picture, wanted the picture to look like photographs and daguerreotypes and things of that nature, looking at old vintage faded photographs, and he referred to hundreds of them to create the look and get all of the sets. And that's another thing. Everything you see in this picture was built either from the ground up at great expense, and the costumes and the clothes and the props and everything. I think there's only one process shot. I think it's in both versions. At the very end, in the epilogue, there's I think one process shot. It's unfortunately fairly obvious, and that's it. Everything that you see in this film is very organic and very real. And his selection of actors. He really handpicked not just I think the way he deals with extras and secondary characters is very much like Frank Capra. Give each and every one of them an identity and tell them what their beef in life is or what their problems are or whatnot. I think he would spend time giving each, even the most peripheral character, a story, a backstory that would add to the fact that they're a real person in this environment. And he had, in making the film and taking as long as he did, and building these sets, this fellow Brian, who was a photographer and Kris Kristofferson stand-in on the picture, told me, he said, you would walk on those sets, he said, you felt you were back in the 1890s. He said it was the most amazing time machine sort of experience being on these sets. I realize I'm rambling a bit, and it's partly because I am just busting with so much information and interest and whatnot about this. So I'm going to, since the film is 2.5 hours, and we have an even longer one, which I hope some of you at least will come to tomorrow night if you want the whole Heaven's Gate experience to see what he did. I'm going to cut this short and we'll get started, and I will come back for Q&A afterwards. Tomorrow night I hope to have one and possibly even two interesting companions, guests who is also, will be very knowledgeable about the picture. One's an author who wrote this book back in 1985, Martin Scorsese and Michael Cimino. I hope he makes it tomorrow night. I think he lives in Charlottesville, and his name's Michael Bliss. And the other one is a fellow named Vincent Pereira, who is a little younger than me, and he's a filmmaker, and he works with people like Kevin Smith and making films and whatnot, but he's also a big Uber fan and historian of this film, and he has bits of information that sometimes even I go, what, really? Is that true? I didn't know that. So he throws me sometimes. It's also important to note that when you watch a Cimino picture, and particularly this one, he has moments of great tenderness and great and sudden flashes of brutality. And so be prepared that it's not a full-blown entertainment kind of thing. He really is trying to show you real slice of life in a sort of poetic fashion, but really hits you with just the reality of things, and that this is sometimes just it's fate. Things happen to people, and the film has a very kind of a fateful kind of feel to it, and so be prepared for that. But there are moments of great beauty in it as well, and again, pay attention to the actors, because the actors in this, Kris Kristofferson, I personally feel should have won an Oscar for this picture, whichever version of it you watch. I think he was just. He sets the right tone, and there's so much that you see going on with this character from a young man all the way into old age that you see in this. It's just, I think it's very understated, but if you really pay attention, it's a brilliant performance. So I think that's it for the moment, and I hope, again, to thank you so much for listening and coming out to see this, and I look forward to taking your questions and comments and regaling you with stories if you're so inclined afterwards.